In this go-for-a-punch world in which we live, where we spend our days with SpongeBob SquarePants and our nights strolling London after midnight, you may think you've heard of everything we've yet to find. But there is more unknown in this world than you could possibly imagine. This is lesser-known lost media.
Welcome back to Volume 2 of Lesser Known Lost Media, here on Chimera Miniatures' official YouTube channel. I am, as always, your host, Mr. Sean. Today we have another 5 pieces of lost media that you just don't hear about all that often. As always, there will be 4 safe-for-work pieces of media, followed by 1 not-safe-for-work piece. And as always, there will be an ad in between the first 4 and before we start talking about the not-safe-for-work entry. So without further ado, let's get started. Starting off today's list, we have 64 Wars, lost build of unreleased Nintendo 64 turn-based strategy game, circa 1999. So, if you're from America or Europe, you might be aware of the Advanced Wars games. Actually, it's the background video I'm using for this video today. What you may not know is that they are part of a massive series of games known as the Wars franchise. And you might not know this because before Advanced War came out on the Game Boy Advanced in 2001, none of these games had ever been released outside of Japan. But they started all the way back with Famicom Wars, all the way back in 1988. This would be followed by Game Boy Wars in 1991, Game Boy Wars Turbo in 1997, Super Famicom Wars in 1998, and Game Boy Wars 2 in 1998 as well. After that, the next installment would be Game Boy Wars 3 in 2001, which released the same year as Advance Wars. But in between the release of Game Boy Wars 2 and Game Boy Wars 3, there was meant to be a game for the Nintendo 64 called 64 Wars. And you were supposed to be able to use the Game Boy Transfer Pack to transfer data from Game Boy Wars 2 to 64 Wars on your Nintendo 64. This function actually appeared on the menu for Game Boy Wars 2, but it could never be used because 64 Wars never came out. It was originally showcased at Space World 1999 with a release date of January 29th, 1999, but it was cancelled for unknown reasons. And while we do have some footage and screenshots, no builds have ever been released or leaked. Personally, I think this one got scrapped because they just didn't think there would be that much interest in it, or perhaps even the transfer feature that was so intricate and such a big part of this. Probably there was something that just didn't work. And as we know, Nintendo is very big about the quality of their games and, maintaining control and their good name of their properties. So I think rather than release a game that one of the big features of it just didn't work at all, they just decided to scrap it. Personally, I love the Advance Wars series, so knowing that there is a unreleased piece of media out there is kind of cool. Next up, we have Okiku Naruko, a lost Japanese version of a puppet TV series that aired from 1959 to 1988. Do you recognize this monkey? While you might recognize him from countless internet memes, you might be amazed to know that he is part of a massive piece of lost media. Okiku Naruko, which translates to Children Growing Up, was an educational Japanese show produced by Studio Nova that aired on NHK through April 7th, 1959 to March 18th, 1988. It was created for first and second year primary school students in Japan, teaching them lessons like morals and how to act at school. The monkey puppet that we all know from meme fame was actually Pedro, the main protagonist of the show. The show also aired in Latin America from April 13th, 1984 to April 4th, 1986, and was called Niños en Crecimiento. While there are clips available of the Latin America release, only one clip of the Japanese version has currently surfaced, meaning there is a ton of lost media from this show. I definitely think this is cool just because, we all know this monkey so well. We've all seen the memes, and yet apparently so much of him is lost. Up next we have The Superman, lost early comic from superhero series in 1933. In this day and age, it's hard to imagine a world where Superman is not only well known, but highly popular. However, at the beginning, creators Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster had a lot of trouble getting Superman published. His first appearance was in Reign of the Superman, where he was a villain in a short story. And before Superman would make his next and most famous appearance in Action Comics #1, they tried to get him published in a different form. This was called The Superman. And in this version, they turned him into a hero instead of the villain. Unfortunately, after all of their hard work, their publisher, Consolidated Book Publishing, pulled out. It is said that Joe Siegel was so frustrated by this that he threw the entire issue into a fire out of rage and frustration, and we wouldn't see Superman again for another 5 years. As of today, the only thing that survives is a cover and a cover sketch. And these covers are very interesting because Superman looks very different than what we know Superman as. And for one, he is bare-chested instead of his trademark, costume. And the only thing we know about the plot is what Siegel and Shuster tried to remember from memory years later, but they did say that early Superman was a non-alien crime fighter crouching on rooftops and wearing a bat-like cape, which honestly makes him sound more like Batman years before Batman would even be created. Superman is arguably one of the most well-recognized characters in the entire world, and it's interesting to think that something so early in his creation is just lost. And even more so, it's interesting to know that it was lost due to the fact that, despite his popularity today, people just didn't think anyone would like Superman back when he was first pitched. My, how times have changed. Alright, at number 4, we have a lost Pokemon called Gorochu. Back in the early days of Pokemon, when the game was first being developed for Red and Blue, there were a ton of Pokemon that were designed and sadly never made the cut, whether due to space limitations or being made superfluous by the design of a different Pokemon. A lot of stuff did not make the cut. One of these was of a third evolution of the fan favorite Pikachu. Pikachu, with the help of a Thunderstone, evolves into Raichu, and that is his ultimate evolution as of this moment. However, it has been made known by the creators that originally they had planned for Pikachu to have a second evolution and a third form called Gorochu. While they have described a little bit of what he would have looked like, ultimately the only image we have of Gorochu is we did find in the data mining of the game this back sprite of his. There is a lot of artwork out there, but we don't really know exactly what it would have looked like. And in all honesty, we're probably never going to get this unless Game Freak decides to, reuse some of their old designs in the future. Up until the introduction of the Pokemon Grookey a few years ago, Raichu has always been my favorite Pokemon, and so to think that we could have had an even cooler version of Raichu, I'm very saddened at what could have been. But ultimately the creators stated balancing issues were why Gorochu never graced our screens. Alright guys, before we get into today's final entry, I just want to take a little bit of time to talk about my business, Chimera Miniatures, where I create custom kit-bashed and hand-painted miniatures that I sell on both my eBay and Etsy. On my eBay, I also sell Squishmallows, anime figures, and other various collectibles. As stated in my previous video, once this channel hits 50 followers, I will be doing a free miniature giveaway. So in order to help me achieve that goal, please like, comment, and subscribe, and be sure to share this video around. The more people this video reaches, the more chance I have to sell minis, and the more minis I sell, the more videos I make. Links to my minis can be found in the description of this video, as well as links to my socials and my email. If you would like to commission me to make you a custom miniature to your exact specifications, I am more than happy to do so. So without further ado, let's get to today's final not safe for work entry. Our final entry today is Nymphet, which is a lost English printing of the Kodomo no Jikan manga from 2007. Kodomo no Jikan, which translates to A Child's Time, is an adult-oriented manga by Kaworu Watashiya, and it has the unfortunate plot of dealing with an elementary school teacher plagued by the fact that one of his students has a crush on him. And apparently there was a lot of media involving this series. There was a serialized manga between May of 2005 and April of 2013, so this went on for 8 years. It received a 12-episode anime adaptation in 2007, 4 OVAs in late 2009, and a 5th in 2011. And yeah, but its subject matter is just kind of icky, and it has received a lot of criticism and controversy for that content, which many people outside of Japan have called, we're going to say, rhymes with schmedophilic. So in 2006, Seven Seas Entertainment announced that they were going to license the manga for a English translation, and that it would be coming out in December of that year, but it was delayed for unknown reasons until 2007. Then, on May 29th of 2007, Seven Seas Entertainment had an official press release that came that basically stated that they were dealing with backlash over the series' controversial nature, and they were kind of stuck on what to do, and they delayed the series until they could have a dialogue with large book chains and other vendors about whether or not they'd be allowed to, distribute the series. But one day later, the president of Seven Seas, Jason DeAngelis, said that it's not appropriate for Seven Seas to publish Nymphet. He then went on to say that the primary reason for canceling the publication was due to his recent realization that later volumes in the series could not be considered appropriate for US market for any reasonable standard. On his own personal blog, he even stated his disgust in that there is a scene where the male protagonist gets an erection after his student rubs up against him, which is fucking sick, alright? This is an elementary school teacher. So this media just doesn't exist, right? Wrong. It has been confirmed that a limited number of copies of the first volume were printed before the cancellation, and Amazon now has it listed as out of print, limited availability. So somewhere floating around is this super pervy, awful manga translated into English. As far as I'm concerned, this one can stay lost. And that's the video, guys. I do hope you liked it. I hope that some of these pieces of lost media were new to you. If you have a favorite piece of obscure lost media that you would like to hear me talk about on this channel, please be sure to comment that in the comment section, as well as be sure to like and subscribe. Check the links, buy a mini. If you can't think of a comment, just say no Kodomo, just so that I know you made it to the end. And hopefully that you agree with me that that particular manga does not need to see the light of day. But until next time, everybody, I'm Mr. Sean, this is Chimera Miniatures' official YouTube channel, and I hope you alpha great day and an even beta tomorrow. Bye-bye!